Yeah, hello. I would like to ask you this capacity to experience this moment fully. Is it on account of becoming identified with the totality of it, or how is this connected?
Anything that can be said about it already would create a filter, a film. How can one be fully with that what is? And you're asking this question, and we will begin to speak now, and I will tell you, yes, identify with what you do fully, or no, the opposite of that is required. You disidentify completely so as to arrive from another end. All these are filters, already filters. And yet, when you experience complete and utter oneness with what is in a given moment in time, where that, what in English language at least right now, becomes obsolete because a given moment in time, all this is complete and utter limitation there and then. Because given falls down, in moment falls down, in time falls down. That is the only time you are fully present to what is. Anything else is a filter, one way or another. Mental filter, emotional filter. You're trying to outsmart. You're trying to be fully present. Okay, I know, I'm going to cut these carrots, I'm going to cut this, salmon, I'm going to cut whatever I'm cutting, I'm going to now being fully one with the knife. Or shall I be one with the hand? Knife or the hand? Well, knife is cutting, hand is only holding. You see, you're already not one with anything there. Already you are in a dialogue. You are completely out of whack. And yet, when you are fully there and it's sharp, there is no difference between your hand and the knife and the body, soles of your feet, your eyes. Everything is in such alignment that that doesn't even come into a question. All there is cutting, slicing. And in that cutting and slicing, there's nothing that comes as a filter. You see? It's equivalent or comparable to the example we were coming up with when we spoke about just now, prior to this, with analogy to martial arts. Martial arts is not fighting someone or something. It's a misunderstanding of martial arts. In martial arts, there's no conflict. The true definition of that's why it's called martial arts, at least in translation. It's not because even we are preparing for some future combat. It's a thing in itself. And every experience is a thing in itself. Complete and utter thing in itself. You see? So, again, anything that we want to conceptualize in terms of how to be fully present or fully with runs that danger of creating there and then that everything is that immediately rendered. Whereas the beauty of the experience is when it's slushed, and this kind of machine, like tired eyes at the end of the day, something like in front of the screen or something. It's like, and that sensation when everything is crisp, clear. It's also so full in terms of the fullness of sensory experience. Because it's not just clear to the ears or clear to the nose or clear to the eyes. It's this crispiness. It doesn't even matter eyes open or closed now. Let's say, oh, what about? No, it's not even dependent on that. You see? Your eyes may be closed, but it's clear, comes through the sense of touch, this tactile, tactile experience. It's the most formidable experience, and in Tantra it belongs to another realm. You see? It's another realm. All other experiences, all other sensory experiences belong to the lower strata. And only sense of touch belongs to the higher strata. It's a paradoxical thing, but it is the sense of touch that is the most driven. It's the most important. So, anything we say about that immediately there and then becomes a concession to that what is all too obvious. So, when you even ask this, there has to be clarity also. What is asking there? What wants to be one with that presence? What wants to unite? Who feels left behind? You see?
You inviting us to let that go completely, that impulse to conceptualize in any way.
I'm not even inviting you because there's no other way. Inviting presupposes that I invite you to this, and you can decline that because, I invite you to that. But it's like it's all there is. So in a way, there's no choice. You see, it's a choiceless choice. This is why I said it's volatile process as well, because it doesn't have the safety of that what now we're going into transcendence. You see, and now the body will be immobile. I will sit long time in samadhi. Here, it's different. Here is where spontaneity is, in fact, the goal in itself. You see? Self-realization, even that loftiest concept, is not the goal. This is why it is said it has no purpose from the standpoint of how it understands this. It has no journey and destination. And the path and the goal are equal. The path and the goal are equal. So in other words, the path itself towards is neither a set of tools and instrumentality of sorts to achieve higher state of consciousness. So then we begin to experience reality differently. Nor is it that the path becomes somehow enamored for its own sake, and the goal is something vague, something, okay, well, we might get there, we might not, but you hear that a lot in social circles like spirituality. Okay, all this goal-oriented, even spirituality, constantly dangling carrot, enjoy the path, you see? Again, a misunderstanding. Do you see that when the path and the goal are indistinguishable, is a completely different picture? So yes, it's not even an invitation. And yet, in itself, it has this positivistic, underlined, what holds it all together, that underlying reality of the situation. That is what everyone craves already. That is at the very core of all our cravings. So this is also what made at some point Tantra into a revolutionary teaching, and that what makes it also a formidable reappearance on the spiritual scene now. Out of all historical places, why would it come now? Why there is this interest, revival, reemergence? Because also it is fundamentally the very force, and this what everyone craves already, you see? And it's only when there is this fear to acknowledge that, or when it is acknowledged at the surface, skin deep level, superficial level. How often I can even sense when it being shared, you can see this agreement there, but you can see that agreement in what is being said is at a superficial level. Because it's not in reveling in the filth of one's desires. It's a very different thing. In fact, it's contrary to that, because it's not at the very essence of that what somehow creates an opposition. You see? Therefore, analogy again here is with the fluid water. That flowing quality, it doesn't have something which can abstract it. If it abstracts, something tends to abstract it. It will begin to flow around. It will begin to rise so as to overflow. But it cannot experience that limitation based on circumstantial set of whatever that may be, considered to be as trying to contain it. Even when we speak about the cup does not create boundary for the fluid it contains. It beautifully articulates it. So the analogy of a breaking cup, smashing the cup, is also accompanied by that what comes as the understanding that, well, the cup in itself here is not to be blamed. You see? So the body can never be blamed. Body is where the consciousness brims itself and enjoys itself. Because that's where it rises to that level where it is meant to be lipped. So at a certain level of understanding and experience, what naturally becomes self-evident is the futility of the approach when it comes to that what you just now asked. You see? The futility there and then, but only at the level when some work is done. And this is, no matter how paradoxically this may sound. For the one who has done no work, it's pointless even to talk about it at all. But at the level where this has to be lived reality and no longer some kind of dangling event in the future. Any proposition of how is already an act of limitation. Do you hear me what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying it's futile to come up with solutions to what this represents. Because then it will become subject to that immediate confusion. Is it the hand or the knife that cuts?
Yes, exactly. And I noticed this huge fascination also with the tradition of Trika and all these practices, right? Like, for example, no, this Shakta Upaya, right? If I just affirm this enough, with enough intensity, that I am this totality, then it will happen. And yeah, sometimes it works and it leads in that kind of still place. But I just remember something you said last immersion that was very similar to what you shared now, and then there's nothing more that I can say.
Okay, let's take another, give it another stab at it. Let's give it another stab. So that we can even go back to that, what you now brought as the reliance on the upayas, on the means, so as to tweak it again. So this is also clear-cut clarity into what each upaya really represents. But first, something completely different. The meaning of the symbol. When something is just that, a symbol, it has meaning only because it's a symbol. Is it important or not? On one hand, it's meaningless, it's nothing. On another hand, it makes all the difference. All the difference. Because the symbolic quality that it carries, it's either pregnant with and utterly carries that something, or it deprived of it there and then because it means nothing. For someone who is a great appreciator of these, let's say, little figurines, this netsuke in Japan culture, these little figurines cut out of ivory, They're made out of other materials, but most commonly out of ivory. Netsuke? It's little sculptures, little figurines. There's a huge market for it. Huge. There are many forgeries. Forgeries has been going on maybe for centuries, but certainly for decades. You can buy one for a few euros. And the real things, when they come at the auction, there is a queue of people who will fight to have one because they don't have it. The uninitiated will look at it and will not even tell the difference between the one that, let's say, starting bidding price at 10,000 from what you can buy at Etsy for 10 euros. It's the same thing. It looks the same. What makes the difference? What makes the difference? And that is at the superficial still level of authenticity for the one who considers himself, herself to be a collector and would not settle for anything which is inauthentic, let alone forgery. Can you imagine now we translate that into something else, not just for at the level of when it's a price tag attached, but something like where it really is symbol. At the end of the movie by Ridley Scott, I don't know if he directed it or just produced because he's very prolific in these both areas, about Jerusalem, and a particular part where this English knight from England, a young guy who was actually going to find his father, it's played by young Orlando Bloom, and his father played by Liam Neeson, and so it's this drama set in the time when the Crusades were going down there, right? And all these campaigns to reclaim the Jerusalem into the Christendom. Some of you maybe have seen it, but you know the history, right? Jerusalem changed hands, that's what I'm trying to say. Jerusalem, as a city, used to be taken by Arabs, Turks, or would be claimed back by the so-called part of what was a Christian world, Christendom. Even one of the kings of England at some point went all the way to, I think that was Richard the Lionheart. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the film, when they withstood the siege and there's already a famine in the city, they're all dying there and everything. So this knight, played by young Orlando Bloom, decides to surrender because the exchanges that he gets and the promise from Saladin, the historical figure of great importance at least. And there's this moment when they face each other in the middle under the white flag, right? City still there, not taken. There's holes in the wall, and there's a whole army of Mamluk Turks, and the Saladin is there ready to burn it now, the whole entire city, if they don't surrender. And it's been going on for a long time. So these two people meet, and the decision is to what is this whole ordeal. They fought for so long. So this knight decides to surrender the city. To surrender the city so as to spare the people. And he comes with this condition that everyone, every single person in the city is to be spared. Even those who fought. Strongly made, cinematically, beautifully filmed, emotionally charged moment. When it's all done and promises are made and everything, he turns around to Saladin and asks, so what's this city worth? And Saladin replies to him, nothing. He bends his head down and starts walking away. So many lives taken, so much suffering already, so much they went through fighting for the symbol. And then Saladin shouts, and everything, and he raises this hand in this kind of accent, and everything, it captured this sentiment beautifully. Nothing and everything. Nothing and everything, because it's a symbol. You see? Jerusalem stood as a symbol of faith. Okay, we can now deconstruct that and go into that. Yeah, hang on a second. People, what are you talking about? All these people are lunatics, they're fanatics, this and that. We're not talking about this, folks. We're talking about the importance of the symbol. The attention here is to what, at one point, one value scale, nothing. At another, simultaneously, at the very same time, and everything. You see? It's interesting how that whole exchange, I remember it very well, because to me there was this analogy to also what Tantra constantly works with, constantly, that nothing and everything. And it is that where the balancing act of life is, that nothing makes sense here. All this is good for nothing, and yet only here is everything. And it is that for you to make sense out of this. It is for you to find yourself, your place here, where nobody will give you answers, because it's nothing from one point of view and everything from another. You see? This is somehow was vividly, whether Ridley Scott meant it or not, but the sentiment was delivered. When we come now to speak about the symbol here, and the symbol here can be extended to that principle of what we are. You see? So this, what frees the energy, is no longer hankering for something, latching, trying to hold on to. The more we try to hold on to something, the more it slips between our hands. Soon as we let it go, it is ours. Bizarre. It's like trying to court a queen, as in the Tantric language. It's like trying to appease a muse for creative process. You cannot appease a muse by, inspire me, I'm yours. Like how people I want to surrender. It's like, oh yeah, really? Are you sure? You want to surrender? like this Facebook, Instagram, and back in the days, the blogs, just surrender, And not only that, it's just, take me, take me. So that, as I said, to give it another stab. So going back to now actual means, and you brought this Upayas, and that you gave example. Sometimes, as you said, right, working with Shaktopaya. The only understanding here is that each of the means exemplifies here the will, knowledge, and action. It's the coveted and very, very, very canonical, traditional, right? Ichcha Jnana Kriya. Ichcha Jnana Kriya, that's what the means are here. The main force, the main power in the highest of the three, because the fourth one we don't talk about, there's no need to talk about that, is utilizing the power of the will. It is an expressive potentiality of pure will. See? And the only methodology there is I am. The only methodology. There's nothing else left. In the intermediate, or so-called intermediate, the Shaktopaya, is an expression of knowledge. It's the Shakti herself. Knowledge. Consciousness. So the power here is the power of that, Gyan Shakti. That's what is being utilized. And in the so-called inferior Upaya, that what is spoken of as the individually tailored, with all the gamut of spiritual practices and methodologies, it's an expression of Kriya Shakti. Kriya Shakti. So this is all that is required in proper understanding. Will, knowledge, and action. And there's no subordination among them. They are a trinity. In a trinity, everyone is equal. Is not? Is it not? So therefore, those who speak about inferior and superior have to understand this. It's only spoken in terms of the limitations of the language. No mantra, yantra, and any what is aided at the individual level ever inferior to the highest mean. How can it be? How can it ever be? You see? This is then a true understanding of the Trikashaivism. This is a true application of its methodologies. Otherwise, we lock horns with, I don't know, with what. So, and it relates squarely to what you've asked as well. If you reflect on this, it relates to what you've asked as well. See?